Hey there, cybercrime junkies. Got a question that keeps you up at night, or ever wish you could hear from a specific guest, or have a true cybercrime story you want us to investigate? You can now text our studio directly at 904-867-4466. Don't be a stranger. Text us at 904-867-4466. Don't miss the chance to be part of the conversation. Text us direct at 904-867-4466.
Come join us this year as we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the importance of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, with resources, time, and energy spent spreading awareness to fight cybercrime. Better security investment has a positive ROI for boardrooms and the bottom line. This year, our goal is to challenge you to learn something new about cybersecurity and to share it with others. So to raise awareness, we challenge you to do that this year.
We're launching Security live stream every single day during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, covering key cybersecurity topics.
So come join us and raise awareness this year. This is Cybercrime Junkies. And now, the show. So welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies podcast. In today's episode, we're going to have how to protect yourself online, the 4 truths about cybersecurity from an FBI perspective with special guest, Scott Augenbaum. Scott, welcome to the studio. Thank you, sir.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me here. You guys are doing unbelievable work in educating people, and it's such a privilege to be here with you today.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Scott, explain to the listeners your background. From our understanding, you're a retired FBI special agent of the Cyber Division, which was formed, back in 2002 in Washington, D.C.
Tell us about that.
Tell us a little bit about your background, right, so that the listeners understand.
Well, first of all, I don't think my listeners can see me, but you see the big smile on my face, right?
We do.
That's because I'm retired from the FBI. And I retired in 2018. I had an amazing 30-year career with the FBI. Started at age 20 as a file clerk, became an FBI agent in 1995, dabbled in cyber in 1998 when the National Infrastructure Protection Center was formed as the lead government agency for critical infrastructure protection in 1998. I got involved. That was my core competency. Cybercrime, I went to headquarters in 2003 as a supervisory special agent in the FBI Cyber Division, worked on the first national cyber strategy, became a supervisor of our cyber task force in Nashville, Tennessee from 2007 to 2013. Spent the last 4 years handling all outreach because I discovered a really important message that it was my job to get out to the community. Retired in 2018, started a brand new journey. And as I like to joke, 30 years, never had a real job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not a lot of responsibility, right?
No responsibility at all.
But I want to take you guys back in time a little bit. I want to take you back until 1995. Because I want to explain the difference between today's environment of the FBI and what it was like. So if you'd ask me, Scott, what'd you do for a living in 1995? I would say it was really easy.
Yeah, like a day in the life. What was a day in the life then?
Well, I'm going to give you a big encapsulating picture of what 5 years looked like. I can explain it in 3 sentences or a couple of words. Bad people did bad things to good people, and I worked with local cops and state cops, and we put bad guys in jail. Right. What a fun and exciting job for this 27-year-old kid from Brooklyn, New York, a gun, a badge, a bulletproof vest, played cops and robbers with my friends. Because in 1995, crime was a localized problem. And the FBI has 56 field offices, about 485 smaller offices. And that's it. Crime was a localized problem. And we were working bank robberies, fugitives, drug dealers, and all that stuff, extortion. I mean, my life was the middle of a video game and a mystery novel, from bouncing from one thing to another.
That's a great
description. Easy to explain. And even cybercrime was in its infancy when I started. And now, as you know, it's a completely different world that we live in today.
Yeah, it really started almost as wire fraud, things like that, right? And then it's we talk about it all the time, how when people get online, they're in a small town in rural Kansas, and they get online, you are not entering rural Kansas. There are no borders, When you get online, you enter their world.
Yep.
And it's interesting. You know, I've read a lot of your work, Scott. You mentioned back in like August 2016. And for the listeners, Scott has these 4 truths. So we're going to get into them and some of the true cybercrime stories that Scott was involved in.
So, and these are people I looked face to face with. This isn't a situation where we're talking with a large healthcare company in the billions of dollars, which I've seen victimized, or Fortune 500 companies. I've seen that. These are small businesses.
Right.
These are romance scam victims. These are the elderly. These are nonprofit organizations. And what do they all have in common? Which is my first truth about cybersecurity. And I want to ask you guys to help me unpack these, because we can go into hours on each one. But the first one is, none of my victims ever expected to be a victim. They were all caught off guard, and they went like this. I can't believe I was targeted. Why would anyone want to target me?
Yep.
So you had to, I wanted to say, where are you getting your information from? People Magazine, the cyber criminals do not care who you are. Now being retired and working for myself, I'm going to tell you they're 100% wrong. 100% wrong. Well, and here's what I was telling people back when Dark Overlord was playing in the field. If you have ransomware on your network, I want you to know that they already stole your information. And this would people would not want to hear this, because at the end of the day, and do we pay or do we not pay? I'm going to tell you, everybody pays. If you're thinking about that, you are having the wrong conversation with your organization. What are we doing to prevent this from happening? What are we stopping? How are we stopping executables from running on our network? And I'm telling you point blank, the whole thing of backing up, nobody ever takes into account that backing up does nothing to prevent ransomware. We've been focusing on the availability aspect for too long. I sit down with healthcare companies and I go, okay, if they can steal your information, can they alter your information? Yes.
Yes.
Healthcare company. What do you do if they change a simple letter from A to B in all your blood type records, and you get an email saying a message? We have to stop. We have to think differently about the whole entire ransomware. So let's make sure everybody here understands where we are so far. Bad guys impact you. It's still important to report these things. Business email compromise, completely out of control. The account compromise, and this is according to my friends today who are doing intrusion response work for hire, almost 80% of their intrusion response work comes down to nothing more than account compromise. Not a sophisticated attack. The fact that there are billions of usernames and passwords on the dark web. And from the dark web, these bad guys are selling them to the West Africans, who are figuring out very, very simple scripts to start spraying your stolen username and password from the Yahoo breach in 2015 against 100 of the top e-commerce sites. And they are just getting in and time again. And the fact is, the majority of people do not put 2-factor authentication. And everyone goes like this to me. I can't believe this happened to me. The cyber criminals just got access to, because my whole Salesforce database was online. And they blame the CISO.
Right.
Instead of blaming the sales. But these are the things that we have to really kind of take into account. And, what I talk about is not revolutionary. It's kind of common sense. But as I say all the time, common sense is not the same thing as common practice. It takes work. There's no magic pill for that. Then you go through the 4 truths, and then you just really sit here. And if you explain that, look, you're not getting your stuff back, nobody's going to jail, but it could have been prevented. And then you just start unpacking, like, look, 90% of the stuff I dealt with were these 5 or 6 principles. These are the principles. Go work on this. This is what I'm putting out every day on LinkedIn, just trying to make a point. You need repetition. You read my book, that'll keep you safe for about 3 days. I know I'm talking people out of buying the book, but at the same time, it's like we have to have repetition over and over again to remind people about this, because we have an older population that has access to technology, and the cyber criminals are slaughtering to you that your stuff is stolen, you're not getting it back, nobody's going to jail. However, 90% of it could have been prevented. So now let me explain to you what are the simple steps in the framework. And when people go, how is this going to prevent 90%? As an FBI agent, after listening to 1,000 victims, I discovered the patterns. Now, discovering patterns is really cool. But it's when you create your own patterns, that's when the magic really starts working. So first of all, the first thing is talking about that social engineering is the weapon of choice of the cyber criminals. Okay.
Yep.
And that upsets my network friends. That upsets the 3% who are the techies who go, it's the network based. It's all in the packet. I'm like,
It's not, though. It's
I'm
not.
like, my mother doesn't know what a packet is. Okay. Unless it's
Right, right.
Okay. But my mother can realize that social engineering through either phishing, texting, or telephone calls, or through websites.
Yep.
Like romance scams and Facebook account compromises and LinkedIn and getting messages. That is the tool of the cyber criminal. And it's going to go through weapons that they're going to use. And it's not, and what is social engineering? Tricking us into do things that we don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And what do they want us to do? They want us to download a piece of malware, or they want us to click on a link, and that's it. So I got to get people to understand, because if I explain it to them, oh, wow, by you clicking on that link from Amazon, their bad guy's going to steal all your money. And also, let me make reference to the fact you're not getting it back.
Right. And they're not going to jail.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so that's number one. That's part of getting people to do that. The other thing that we have to realize is, what are the cyber criminals trying to get us to do? They're phishing us to get information in malicious code in our networks. But now the cyber criminals, you don't even have to do phishing anymore.
No.
Why is that? Because there are so many usernames and passwords on the dark web, and there are so many people who don't secure their platforms with two-factor, and we'll talk about that now it's the account compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Because 66% of the population is using the same password for multiple platforms. So now I have to convince people, because remember, I'm always in a game. I got 40 minutes. I got 10 minutes. I got to explain to you why you need to do this. So my whole big point here is, if you were using the same password for multiple platforms, the cyber criminals are going to get access. So let me use the Yahoo example that I like to use. 3.5 billion Yahoo usernames and passwords stolen by, guess who? Russian organized crime. And what did Yahoo tell us all to do? Do you guys remember that?
Get credit monitoring. Change your password.
So let's just assume all 3.5 million users changed their passwords.
Which they didn't.
All right, let's just play the game. Come on, humor me. This is my make-believe time, guys. I'm on
okay.
Right.
Change their username and password. Everybody's Yahoo account is safe. Out of those 3.5 billion Yahoo users, what percentage do you guys think have either an iPhone, an iPad, or a Mac computer, which means they have an iCloud account? What percentage? Take a guess. We don't need to know the right answer, but what do you think?
80%.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be lower, 50%.
All right, let's just say for my example, it's 10%. Can we agree that it's more than 10%?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's go lower. Let's go lower. What is 5% of 3.5 billion besides a lot?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Imagine setting yourself apart from the competition because your organization is always secure, always available, and always ahead of the curve. That's NetGain Technologies, your total one source for cybersecurity, IT support, and technology planning. Picture picking up the phone and having decades of technology and cybersecurity expertise on the other end, like a bat phone, but with a team of specialists ready to make your business faster, easier, and more profitable. Since 1984, NetGain Technologies has designed, built, and implemented customized technology solutions for businesses of all kinds. They offer a clear roadmap and security plan to keep threats at bay, all at a predictable, affordable monthly cost. NetGain Technologies supports organizations across the United States, providing the benefits of a fully staffed in-house IT department and security team at a fraction of the cost. Get peace of mind. Get competitive. Get NetGain. Contact NetGain today at 844-777-6278 or reach out online at netgainit.com. That's netgainit.com and get ahead of your competition today. I don't know. Math is not my forte.
Right. I think it's 170. Out of that subset, there are 175 million Mac users, just for this example on the low end. And I guarantee you 99.9% say Macs don't get viruses. Well, nobody needs a virus on a Mac because almost 60% of the users are using the same password.
Mm-hmm.
So what's 60% of 175 million? Let's even bring it down lower. Let's say it's 10%. That's 17.5 million people are going to get infected.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
because 60% of the population. So I need to convince users that they can't use the same username and password for platforms. But if they don't know what platforms they need to protect, it's game over. So let's talk about this from a user point of view, not an organization. I'm going to have you guys tell me, because I'm going to go sip some coffee. What are the platforms that your users need to protect to keep themselves and their families safe from a financial loss?
Banking, employment, retirement, and social media. Social media.
Yeah.
Here's a big overlooked one, guys. Your AT&T and your Verizon account.
Oh, yeah.
They get into that, it's game over.
But once they're able to SIM swap, right? Your entire digital life.
Not SIM swapping. That takes skill. Just go into your AT&T account and reroute all your calls and all your text messages to another number. Right. Everyone's like, well, what about SIM swapping? I'm like, well, you don't have two-factor authentication. I mean, what you're protecting against the advanced threat, which is real, but let's protect the simple threat. So I need your users to go out here and identify mission-critical accounts. Now that we've done this, I want you to tell me what accounts that you see in your life that companies have access to that are cloud-based accounts that are outside of the world of IT and outside of the world of information security. Are doing a great job at protecting the perimeter, but now the perimeter's moved. We have banking, we have payroll, we have all of these different accounts. And think about how many different accounts are we using to keep things in. That's all the cyber criminal needs to get access to. He doesn't need your main data store. He needs your Salesforce.
Right.
And or even your social media. Now this kind of causes a little bit of a frenzy because all of a sudden I always say, hey, I just looked at your risk assessment. Listen, you still got a ton of risk you didn't cover. And everyone goes, well, this isn't, my SOX 2 audit doesn't cover this. And these same people who are using the Google Chrome browser that are storing all of their passwords in the browser, cybercriminal gets access to the Google Chrome browser, right? Just getting your Gmail account. Now he sees all your stored passwords. Mm-hmm. And, okay, guys, we've done all of these things. Are we out of the woods? No. Business email compromise, because now your third parties aren't going to do this.
Right. So, explain to the listeners that maybe aren't in the industry what business email compromise is.
Okay, business email compromise is very easy that would be good to explain. If you are not using two-factor on your email, or your vendors are not, you are going to get an email from somebody you know and somebody you trust. So let's say you have two-factor authentication on your email. Let's say you work for a large Fortune 500 company. You have policies in place. You have the best email filtering tools in place. You got firewalls. You got XDR, MDR, EDR, things I don't even know what they do. So you are a secure fortress. However, the cyber criminals get access to one of your vendors because he's not using two-factor authentication, or she. They see that you have a financial relationship with your vendor, with this person. Now, all of a sudden, your accounts payable person gets an email from your vendor and says there's no malware in the thing. And all it says is this one thing. Hey, Barbara, I just want to let you know, we just changed bank account information. Here is the new bank account information. Please enter this into the system. And unfortunately, in so many organizations, large and small, what do you do when you get an email from a trusted third party asking you to do something? They're not asking you to send money.
Nope.
Right.
All they're asking you to do is enter into the system. And I've seen this happen before, and I've seen a company get taken for $6.8 million. Still happening every single day. And this is a financial person. Now, I've gotten brought into these because I've dealt with some pretty big ones. And I usually kind of get brought in and I ask the question, hey, what's your policy when somebody changes bank account and routing information on a bank account from a vendor? And they always look at the CISO. You guys are security experts. Who owns the risk in this situation for changing for financial information? Is that the risk of information security, or is that the risk of finance? Who owns the risk?
My opinion. My opinion is it should fall on finance. That's a policy. That's a leadership decision. They need to implement the policies with the advice and counsel of their CISO or their legal counsel. But every department owns their own security. Every individual does.
But if I can get you to understand that individual level, then maybe you have hope. So that's why I always go with the end user in mind, because at the end of the day, I didn't lose sleep when these companies lost $4.5 million. I hate to say it. It didn't matter to me, but it killed me when somebody was tricked out of sending $10,000.
Yeah.
It was a horrible day.
Yeah. Well, Mark and I had an incident. Well, we've seen business email compromise in real life, Scott, is we've seen where somebody in leadership is going to speak at a conference, right? And what happens? They post about it on social media. The marketing team does, because they're proud of their leader, right? And she's going to speak at this conference. And lo and behold, the day of the conference, right as they are about to go on stage, right around that time, internally, they get an email from the leader that says, "Hey, it's going well here. I'm just about to get on stage. I forgot to get this vendor paid," or something like that. Please get this done for me today because we're working on some deal or some socially acceptable reason. And they say, "I'll circle back with you tomorrow." And it looks like it's from the leader. It looks like it's legit. It'll be a vendor or an account that they're used to, that they deal with. The only thing that'll be different will be the routing instructions in the bottom. And if you don't have a policy in place to independently verify, then you're going to fall short for that. Mark and I were meeting with a CIO, and a woman walks past and says, "Oh, hey, we transferred that over to X vendor just like you requested yesterday." And we kept talking, and we were there. And then right like a minute later, you saw the light go on above her head, and she goes, "Hang on a minute." And she bolted out. And she's like, "What wire transfer? What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, I got this email." She's like, "That wasn't from me."
It happens all the time. These are the things I write about. These are the things I talk about. Because I have one goal. I mean, when I was with the FBI, I felt like I couldn't do enough.
Yeah.
I just really couldn't do enough. I've seen bad things happen to good people. I felt very, very powerless. I felt like I couldn't help. When I was a young FBI agent, I felt like I could save the day. Then I realized, I had this epiphany that a majority of the things easily could have been prevented. And as a result of that, that's why I do what I do. And I live what I call my passion project life, which is trying to help people. And, if you go to my website, cybersecuremindset.com, here's the framework. It's everything that you've done. And what was the traditional advice? Scott, you're giving away everything for free. I'm like, look, I'm not telling anything that anyone hasn't already known. If I can keep people safe,
exactly right.
That's it. And that's how I make my living, because you know what? I give everything away to the do-it-yourself people. You do not need me. You can go to LinkedIn. You could go watch my videos. You could do all that. And then companies call me up and they go, "Can you do it for us?"
That's a full-time job, though, right?
What's that?
I mean, that's like a full-time job for someone to actually figure out what all the best practices are. What I loved about your book is you synthesized it. You just boiled it down in very practical terms, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's
you just follow these things and actually do what is being suggested. You reduce your risk. Right? There's no silver bullet, but there is a reduction of risk.
And I don't claim to solve every problem, but I've taken the nuggets that I've learned. I've taken what it took me 25 years to learn. And I'll share with you, a lot of my friends laughed at the time. They go, "What are you going to do? You're not technical, Scott." I mean, I've taken 7 SANS classes. I struggled with every single one of them. And I realized that that's not my strength. My strength is taking things, boiling it down, being very, very passionate. I love what I do. I've taken the nuggets of being an FBI agent. And that's why when people say, "Scott, do you miss the FBI?" I go, "Absolutely not." And everyone looks shocked. I had an amazing career. I would do it all over again. But
what I've learned, the same mission. You're still doing the same mission.
I'm doing it. But now I don't have to deal with the hang-ups. I can give my advice. I can tell people what I think. And I can just be very, very passionate about it. And that's why I love what I do.
That's fantastic.
And I would encourage all the listeners to connect with Scott on LinkedIn. Scott pushes out a lot of really good information on LinkedIn with a good cadence that if you connect with Scott on LinkedIn, you'll definitely learn something just by following his message. And Scott, I really appreciate your passion for what you do. I'm glad to see somebody out there trying to boil the ocean with that. So
no, and I love what
it rings close.
You guys are doing an awesome job. You got a great following. I can't wait to push this out to my tribe and everything, because just, little by little, we just have to build our own ecosystem. We have to sit there. And it takes people, to get, and I've been trying. I'm not giving up, because here's one of the things that I've learned. I got very frustrated because when I learned this information, I went out in front of an audience of 500 people. I boiled everything down into a simple checklist, which eventually became my book. And I said, "Come over, connect with me, and I'm going to give you everything you need to keep yourself and your family safe, just in a couple of points." And 5 people came to me out of 500 and asked me for my information. And I went, "Oh my God," I got so frustrated. I got angry and I was about to give up. But I said, I helped 5 people that day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you save one business that has built a generational business and you keep their doors open because they just weren't looking at their blind spots, it's worth it. If you keep one family, one elderly family member that doesn't lose their life savings because of something that our message is resonating with, that makes it all worth it.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
So, Scott, thank you so much. Links to Scott's book and his website and his LinkedIn will all be in the show notes. We thank everybody for listening. Scott, thank you very much, sir.
Hey, guys, you're doing a great job. Thank you for having me. We sucked all the oxygen out of the room, or at least I did.
That's great.
It was all good stuff. Scott, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It absolutely won't be our last conversation, so we'll talk again soon.
All right, guys.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, we'll see everybody. Bye. Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us.